Welcome to The Girl Herd,
where we talk Texas football.
and a bunch of takes you probably already heard.
But not from us. How do we feel Colorado State versus Texas game went? Did we see our depth? What do y'all think?
I think so. For everybody there this weekend, I stayed back, so I had a little bit different of a perspective of getting to watch it on TV and hearing the commentators and whatnot, everything that they were saying from that side of it. And I was impressed, right? Like we talked about this last week of how are we going to show up against a team that we are quote unquote supposed to beat. And I was impressed, right? Like we ran the ball. We passed through for a lot of yards. Quinn came out, especially in the second quarter, I feel like is when the offense started clicking and getting into their rhythm. But I feel like we dominated on that. Was it a perfect game? I don't think so. But what I wanted to see week one, yes. And I think I saw somewhere we played 51 players in the game, which is unreal to me. Like, and again, shows some of the depth that we've been hearing about, been talking about in those rooms.
Yeah, I want to jump in and say something about game one, which I thought was amazing. Our first shutout since 2004 and an opener. And
Yeah.
I think a different energy, right, than many of the openers that we've been part of, including even like as recently as last year, right? Like it just seems we upped the level a little bit, but it does crack me up, whether it's Longhorns or any team, because I spent the weekend watching lots of different game ones. And the expectations of fans sometimes, I'm like, you know what? They have been practicing a thing. We all have jobs to do. I would love for any of us to be put on the stage and like, word go, you expect 100%. People need to warm up. That's what the first quarter was all about, getting the wrinkles off of them. I spent Friday night watching North Shore also play South Oak Cliff. It was the same exact story. No points for North Shore in the first quarter. And then second quarter, they had 35. So it's just about getting yourself warmed up, and people do need that. So human beings, folks, let's remember.
Yeah, we even Sark shouted out the fans and everyone that showed up and, stayed at least for the majority of the game, if not to the end. I mean, it was crazy. Like, I know it is interesting. It's always interesting to watch games, whether in person or on TV, and like the differences you get to hear. I agree with that. So I honestly, like Angie, it's going to be exciting to hear what you got to hear over the TV that, Devin and I didn't necessarily. And then, but like being there, I remember, so Devin and I got the chance to take along a friend who had never been to UT or any kind of like big stadium. Like her biggest stadium she had ever been to was 20,000 capacity. So she's like, y'all's are what? Like, how many people are about to be there? And so going into the stadium, like even for us, I agree, Devin, like it was an exciting first game and it felt like a different experience even than the past. Like our game day experience has changed for sure, but even on the first game, coming out on a game that like could have been not a 2:30 hot Colorado State hopefully should be an easy one, but the fans showed up. Like there was 99,000 people in capacity there, and it was, I mean, all the way to the top. I thought, oh man, they're really close to the sun. That has to be a little spicy up there. But came to watch Texas play, and I enjoyed our day, even though afterwards we crashed for sure. I can only imagine what our players did as well. But
I'm glad that you mentioned the game experience, because I wanted to ask you guys, like, how the heck did it feel to be back in DKR?
Well, I think the most fun part was Michelle's friend that she mentioned, her reaction upon us walking for the first time, like outside into the stadium where our seats are. She was like, whoa. So it's just fun and it doesn't get old. I spent a lot of time going to games with Michelle last year, and I just experienced so much joy and happiness. And Texas football has always made me happy, but I hadn't spent a ton of time like at games at the level that I did last year in such a long time, like probably since undergrad. And I just love Longhorn Nation, and it just seems like we're building up on a culture that Sark has provided, and I'm excited to see what happens this year for sure.
Yeah, we were like even walking onto campus. Like she was like, "What is this world?" You know, and it's just you get so I don't know, it becomes normalized, but it's still amazing. Like we still have so much fun, but we're walking up and we're going and we're passing, Longhorn city limits and the band playing, and then there's all like the stuff going on Bevo Boulevard, and you see like we went to Flat Creek, like Eddie's winery, and we wanted to go see that, so we went there, and there's all these things along the way, and we were standing at a corner trying to figure exactly where we were going since that was new, and she's just like literally has her video out like going around the whole corner being like, what world am I living right now? And it's just, I mean, it is exciting to see that from a different point of view once again. And then I mean, we went into the stadium and the intro video plays, and I love that they've changed that every year, and this year was Colt, so that was exciting for him to come back and do the intro video, and then all of the fans like yelling, the smoke, the mic man, like everything that's happening even for whatever game it may be, right? Like I'm just happy that we create that culture and that game day experience, and all the way to the end she was just like, this life you guys live. so, so crazy and exciting, but yeah, it was very fun, and of course it helped that our team did very well and we got to see all the things we got to see as well. And I do think we saw the depth, and I know that's kind of like my first question, like did we? I mean, I think we did. I agree with you, Devin, like coming out of the gate, like there's lots of things people could say, but I do think they settled in, like even to the second quarter, and then of course halftime helped too. But
Yeah, I want to also speak on something because I think it's important that we discuss it since it's like the easy discussion, but I feel like it needs to be addressed, which is obviously we saw the first quarter, the second quarter happened, and people were like wanting for Arch Manning. So
yeah,
I have
yeah.
specific thoughts on that. I also had a really good conversation with Kate about it. My dad has specific thoughts, but I'm just really curious your own thoughts, the two of you, on that situation.
I I think it is right. He has the name, right? He is a Manning, and I think people are just so excited about the hype around him and who he is. But I do kind of have to wonder, like, how it makes Quinn feel, right? When Arch comes in, and what I mean, I could see on my end is the crowd kind of erupting, right? Is what they were talking about as soon as he steps on the field, and like how that makes Quinn, who is our starting QB1 and who has done amazing things for us. And here comes this little Arch that's name holds so much weight, and that the fans are just so pumped and eager to see him on the field, and like what that feels like.
I was having the discussion this morning as well, Devin. So I know, I mean, we've had tons of people, I'm sure, but someone was like, I'm curious, like we could hear it on TV, but how did it sound in this stadium? Like, was it as loud? Did it erupt, in the same way? And I said, man, like people were yelling Arch for a while throughout the game, and like people wanted to see some differences and like what was happening. And I mean, I had the same comment, Angie, like it does make me think of Quinn and how he feels, though I do think like the other side of that is I think he's confident. He's going into his fifth year. Like I think he's excited to play, because I think as fans, as much as we're excited to see Arch as well, like we would have been very sad had Quinn gone towards the NFL draft and not come back. Like we are happy to have Quinn, and he is proving to show that he's a senior quarterback. And I think everyone, it is the hype around Arch. We're all excited. I myself love, and I've said this before, having two quarterbacks, and I don't hate that. So going into a game like we did and showing all the depth that we have and allowing Arch to play as well and make those connections with, whether it's wide receivers, running backs, whatever it is, or himself, I think that's important. And we always talk about making sure the guys have time on the field and getting that time in. And so I all of the above. Like, I'm excited for it. I would be curious, of course, that's something we should ask our fan base, like go around and be like, why do y'all want to see Arch so much? Or like, what do you feel? But for me, I mean, I'm excited that we have two great QBs and they're connecting with all the above.
Something you said took me back to Rose Bowl with Colt.
Yeah.
And Colt going down, and it's just like the look of terror, right? Like, because our other core QBs had never really seen the field, right? And now you're on this huge stage, so there is that upside for sure, like you mentioned. But Devin, what did Mr. Mike say?
Well, my dad said what everyone else is saying, but I think it's just such it's an easy thing to like want the thing that you don't have. It's a harder thing to stick with the thing you have. So I mean, that's why the audience was reacting that way. And I, for one, think if we had Quinn here, he would tell you he's just fine. And he's just fine if Arch is way better than him as well, because it's called life. And good players, good teams, you don't want to be surrounded by mediocre. You don't want to be the one and having to carry it all on your back. And by the way, let me remind everybody, 16-game season this year. Everything is completely different, which is what I told my dad. So cool. Arch is getting his experience, and hopefully they both remain healthy throughout the season. But to your point, Angie, it's just a different ball game entirely now. And I think that what Sark is instilling in the team is a team mindset, and it is getting people prepared for the next level. I think that's the brand that he set forth. And we saw that with the wide receiver set as well. So if you go look at the depth chart, any of those twos could be ones. They all got on the field. They all got to get in the mix. And guess what? They'll probably all land in the league. So there was a ranking like college football top quarterbacks. Quinn was number 1 after week 1. So right where he should be. And we're sticking with him because he is the tenured starter. And we need that going into the SEC. So Arch, by the way, I mean, extremely impressive. So fun to watch. But Quinn held his own out there, had a no-look pass, was doing all types of things and getting that ball into all sorts of pockets. So like you said, we're sitting in a really good position across the position sets. And for me, another area that stuck out, because I did get to watch a little bit on TV this morning too. I wanted to hear what they were saying. I am most impressed with, after week 1, our secondary group. They were in the mix, getting the ball, being ball hawks, stopping the ball, and not getting long pass plays on them, because last year they were one of the lowest ranks position groups across the FBS. So that for me made me really happy, and we're going to need that as we start playing some of these tougher teams.
Agree. I was going to ask y'all about, we talked a lot about our offensive side of the ball and what we expected and what we wanted to see. Did you guys see what you wanted to see on the defensive side of the ball, right? Like, we held them to, right, what, like 119 yards, I think, of offense. It was something crazy.
Yeah, that's what I was saying before. And Michelle, you're probably about to say the same thing. That's what I was saying before at the top of our pod about it being a different level of excellence. Like, the edge was set. People were stopped. Like, we could let them get 7 or 3, but we did not. And to me, that just shows the statement that we were looking to make. Whereas in years past, it was like, go out there and get the decisive win. But no, they were coming out with all these stats that of things we hadn't done at that length since a long time ago. So for me, like, absolutely no, none of my questions remain unanswered as it stands right now.
Yeah, I mean, I know that was one of our questions, was how's defense and are we going to play to our opponent? And I agree, like, we could have easily let them get some points on the board and we didn't. And that was, I mean, and Devin, you already said this stat. Like, I remember us reading it after the game being like, shut out since 2004. Like, that's, I mean, for an opener, that's kind of shocking, really, but like very exciting times and what we're headed towards. I think, so yes, like, we did interceptions. I got to see, different players playing different things, right? Like, there was a player who they're ready to play multiple different positions and what he was going to do, day of. And like, I love that. I love that we have players that are just ready to, like, hey, put me in, coach. Like, I will play whatever you want to play. And they have been practicing all these things. Sark did mention, and I would agree with this, like, our special teams, like we'll see in this coming week, really like put them to the test, probably more so than they got, this past week. But I mean, I think because we really like did a bunch of fair catches. We really only like punted once. So, we'll see what happens on that side. But I mean, I have no doubt, like I still am going into the year with no worries. I know that lots of people have questions going into Michigan because the line has changed. It was -3 and it's already jumped to -7. So
7.5 now too, I think.
yeah, I think it may be even 7.5 now. I mean, it's changed over time, but like when I looked at it, yeah.
I saw that too with the line, but as it relates to special teams, that's one thing I'm really glad that you brought up because I'm ready to see what happens against Michigan in that set of the game, specifically because we are so deep at the wide receiver position. And I did
Yeah.
see Silas Bolden get in the mix. He's our Oregon State receiver transfer. And he got a really nice, I think it was like 30-yard return off of a punt. And I was like, this is awesome because again, you can tell Sark is coaching these guys up to say, hey, get it wherever you can and make sure we're on the winning side of the ball at the end of the day. And so, yeah, I'm ready to see some exciting, hopefully we can block some punts and extra points and all the things. But yeah, it sounds like we're ready to kind of kick off our Michigan week, which it's literally 3 more sleeps and we're on a plane. I cannot believe that.
I cannot either. I'm like, here we come to the big house and like, what's about to go down? Like, what are you guys looking forward to most about this game?
Well, personally, I'm taking one day at a time. Like I'm like, holiday week, a few days of work, and then like we're literally flying out to Michigan. Like, how do our guys feel? I wonder when they land in Michigan. And then we're looking at the weather. We just went from like a very hot game, and now going to the big house with much different temperatures. I mean, I honestly, I keep thinking back to last year going to Bama with you guys and like that game coming right off of the first and just how much fun it was and seeing, I mean, I tell people all the time, I'm like, man, going to Bama, we were so excited. We were pumped. Like, we didn't know what was going to happen coming out of that? Of course the win helps, but the whole game we were on a high regardless and had so much fun. And so it's just really exciting to see another stadium, which is on a lot of people's bucket list, and how many people, even on the Michigan side, that have told us like, you guys should do this, you should go do this, and like where we're staying. So just like obviously atmosphere I'm excited about. And then add on that I get to see our guys play a football game is that much more of an addition.
Yeah, I'm going ahead and put weather right at the top. I can put my
Sweaty.
outfit on and I can wear what I want and it could be cute and I'm not going to be looking sweaty. So I'm gonna put that right at the top. But it's really funny going into this game and it's the same exact weekend that Bama was on last year. But I'm glad that you brought that up because the energy is decidedly different for a couple of reasons. First of all, Bama and Texas, like they're the ones who stole our juice in 2010. Like, let's be for real. And they got all those championships and now we got it back. So I feel like we were looking for revenge of some sort and got it last year. And that's why we were like on that high. And we had that Longhorn belief and delusion probably in some parts of it, but it worked out. Now with Michigan, I mean, we played them in the Rose Bowl the year before the Natty.
5, yeah.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
the year before we won with VY, but you know, a little bit before our time, if you will, when we were like in the thick of it. And I don't know, I don't have a like or dislike for Michigan. You know, they're the most winningest college football program of all time. So I guess we should like care more, but I'm pretty confident going into the game. I'm excited to see their stadium, the big house. You know, it's legendary and iconic, if you will. But in terms of just the game, those heightened emotions for me, Michelle, aren't there. I'm excited to be with you all. I'm excited to be with the rest of the traveling Longhorns. That's always so much fun. But everything else, I guess we're just gonna have to wait to see what happens on the field.
I think I agree to some of that, and I don't know if it's also because of the stories from Michigan, right? Like they lost Jim Harbaugh, they lost a lot of players. Yes, they are the reigning like national champs, but that weight isn't the same. Like you mentioned, we've always heard about Bama, Bama this, Bama that, Bama this, and I don't know if it's because they're up north and we're down in the south that we like don't hear it as much, right? But I think it's the same. Like, I'm excited to go to the big house. I'm excited to see like what's gonna happen. Are we about to like dominate like we did again? I saw today ESPN gives them 26% chance of winning, which is wild to me. Like, is that disrespectful to the reigning national champs?
Extremely.
Maybe. Or, or is that just saying like this is how far Texas has come and like look how good we are?
So I mean, I am optimistic for sure. Like I don't want to just be like, we're gonna run away with it, whatever. But I did hear some stats, and you guys know how I am. So it kind of made me like get a little more like, ooh, I already am excited about this. I'm already, we've never played in regular season. The last time we played, we beat them by 1 point right at the end. But they are the winningest team. They did just win the national championship. They have won like their last
25,
16,
I think. 25.
16, well, it's 16
Home.
straight games.
Home games,
41 out of the last 44, I believe, and then like 23, maybe what you're thinking, like at home straight games. So those stats, in a way, you're like, oh man, like sure, like okay, questionable, like that obviously is inclusive of last season and like everything else, but this would be this would be breaking a lot of streaks for them, for us to win, which I think we can do and are gonna do, but I'm just saying like that makes it a little more exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I will let them deal with that. I'm just like happy that we are getting respect because I have never, and when I saw that it was like 75.7% chance Texas will win, I was like, what? I think Frank even pointed it out to me because I was just shook. Like, that's never since, I've never seen that since I've been watching and been a fan. We've never gotten that type of respect. You guys, we are going to Ann Arbor, right? Like this is not in Austin, Texas, and they are saying that much. So I think that's a pretty big deal. My dad did have something to say about the game, and it was all about the fashion. He said that the Michigan girls specifically, they wear the Michigan merch, but we don't. So that was his added commentary for this. And I don't know, the quarterback's girlfriend, I don't know her name, but the quarterback that went into the league, she was always wearing like Michigan t-shirts and stuff. So I was like, you're kind of right, Dad. The Texas girls are, we like to express it a different way.
Do.
Yeah.
And I
That
do
is
love
funny.
that we can wear some different stuff, because as I was thinking about what to wear, I'm like 60s, high of 60s. What's
It's gonna
that
be
like?
breezy. It's gonna be, and it's in Michigan, right? Like lake wind. I don't know. It's gonna be a whole different ball game, that's for sure. But I think one other thing that I am really looking forward to seeing how we respond to is their like defensive line, and their defense as a whole, right? On one side of the ball. Like, how are we going to respond if our run game continues to get met by a wall? What are we going to do? How are we going to pivot? That's one thing that I'm looking for. And then on the opposite side is how is our defense going to show up when they are going to continue to run the ball down our net, right? What's going to happen, right? And I would hope, right, that our run game has put some stuff into motion and watched a lot of film and all of the things preparing for this week. But what's that going to look like? Because getting the ball, like running the ball, it wears out a defense for sure, and uses more clock usually too, right? So
Yeah, that was one thing that actually came up because Of course, all of the Longhorn fans and everyone else looking ahead to this game on Saturday were paying attention to the Michigan game from this week. And a lot of the commentary and chatter was like, they were struggling, or, they didn't have like this shutout win or anything like that. But people definitely talked about the defense and said that their defense is still very good and how they played very well in that game. So I agree with you, Angie, but honestly, we have never been better prepared for it, because guess what we do? We run the ball down people's throats as well. So our defense and defensive sets in practice, they're ready for that. And that's one thing that I was looking out for actually in the Colorado State game. We've been speaking about our wide receivers, how many that we have, all of these things, but they all got in the mix because we got to establish the run and then go to our pass. So I think Blue and Wisner have a job to do Saturday, because if we can establish that run, they're going to need to start picking and choosing on that Michigan defense what we do. Because once we start opening it up and Quinn starts hitting our receivers, we have so many weapons there. Oh man, I'm just like, what we gonna do?
What are we gonna do?
We're gonna have another iconic throw from Quinn to a receiver.
I think so.
I heard a stat today. Somebody was joking about like the 6 tickets that Michigan allotted for Texas fans. I am curious to see like how many fans are gonna travel, and like how much burnt orange is going to be in that stadium. And I know that's something that we've talked about. We are very blessed with some amazing tickets for this game. So look for us. We might be a little blip of orange in a sea of blue. But yeah, hopefully we're gonna bring some noise into the big house.
I think both are gonna show up. I know a ton of people who are going for our Longhorn Nation to Michigan, so I think there's gonna be a good little crowd. They just made us have to go through some hoops to get tickets a little bit more, but but we're excited. Or there's just a lot of people that are gonna be waiting outside, ready for somebody to sell them their tickets. But I think we'll see a good amount of burnt orange.
Also, can we just shout ourselves out for a minute? We are the only SEC school playing an FBS team this coming weekend, and they are ranked number 9. So, I mean, any way it goes, I think we'll come out successful, but I just applaud us with the schedule. We've had LSU, we've had Bama, now Michigan, we got Ohio State coming, we had ND in the past. Like, we don't mess around when it comes to like coming for the smoke. So we're here for it.
Do you kind of like this trend now that you brought up, like of a Big Ten SEC matchup that continues to happen early in the season? Let's keep it up, right? Like bring on the 2 powerhouse conferences now for football, and let's see how we do.
Yeah, so we're playing Michigan at Michigan this year. Next year, then we like kind of skip, right? We do Ohio State there, Ohio State home, and then we do Michigan home. So at least the next few seasons we'll have that.
Makes me wonder about future. Who would you all want that's non-SEC on the schedule for us that we haven't already had in the mix? That you want to go to their stadium specifically for a home and home, but more so seeing their stadium and playing that team.
Yeah, my first go-tos are SEC teams, so I need to think about that. Yeah.
I feel like Penn could be cool.
Yeah.
Or like a Wisconsin Badgers. I don't know. Like what else are they doing in Wisconsin?
Clemson.
Yeah, Clemson. Clemson would be a good one. My very first boss was a Nittany Lion, so that's how I got tapped in with Penn State. So I agree that atmosphere would be really cool.
There's so many. Like this has always been a thing of mine of wanting to go and visit like all these other stadiums. Like we're looking at our schedule, of course, for the rest of the year, and just, obviously still talk SEC, but all of the travels that we're going to be doing. And someone was like, do you think maybe in October you could give yourself a break and not go to Nashville? I'm like, no, like I want to go.
Yeah, someone was like, y'all are going to Vandy? I was like, yeah, absolutely. It's Nashville. Why would we not?
Right?
Yeah. Somebody said had the same sentiments to me. Like, why is that the game y'all pick? I'm like, who? Nashville. And also, it's going to be the end of October. We're going to experience fall in its full effect.
Also, like our future. I was bringing this up, Michelle, with you, but like again, this game was hot. Like I honestly don't really know how much longer we will be able to like pretend that that's okay to like have that game at 2:30. Like a little kid, I was telling Angie, I was telling Michelle, a little kid inside of the Terrace Club, he had to have been 7, maybe 8, like maybe just turned 8. He was like, I just had to like come in here to take a break. And I was like, I have never said that when I was a child. My parents literally had to like come find me from outside, and it didn't matter what degree it was. So I'm like, this poor weather. I don't know. Anyway, like to jump back into what we were talking about, regarding excitement around who and like where we'd want to play, like what stadiums and everything. Oregon is another one for me. I feel like that would be fun to have like Oregon and Texas. But this whole conversation had me thinking about the LSU and USC game, which I know we all watched, and how fun to like start your season in Las Vegas. But to be honest, I was mostly jealous that they were like in a covered stadium. And I know CDC said no more neutral site games, but like,
Come on.
I feel like August and September games that are not at 7 p.m. I'll
Need
whisper,
to be.
I'll whisper this. I also don't think they should be at unless it's at 7. Like, it's just too much. That's my hot take. Sorry.
Yeah,
I'll second that.
yeah, the number of times all weekend we were like, there's gotta be a certain limit where they're gonna think that, okay, South region, you guys get only night games, at least for the start, because man, like I know it was hotter on that field. Our poor guys with all of this, their padding and everything else on, like I just can't imagine that being our whole future continued. Like, how much would it be, Angie, to close our stadium? Like,
I know.
Truly, can
I
we have a
asked Michelle.
retractable roof? That would.
I asked Michelle that on the way home. She was like, that's something for Angie and her company. I'm like, can you even put a retractable roof on DKR? If not, I'm sorry. We're gonna need to build the whole thing, like rebuild it all. Like it's too much.
You probably could, and we've built plenty of them, but that would be honestly something. But I feel like people too now, right? Like the Bills, they're never going to have a covered because the elements are what they feel set them apart and give them an advantage. And ours is at the complete opposite end of the spectrum of the heat, right? Like, and I don't know which is better or worse, but I feel like they're like, yes, come down here and try to get sweaty, right? Like, see if you can actually handle it when we've been practicing in it for forever. But again, I would love to not sweat through all of my attire and have a red face and maybe be
they,
dehydrated every weekend. That would be great. But I do think it was so fun that LSU and USC played in Vegas. That stadium is unreal looking. And I do think that's part of it, right? Like the NFL now has some really amazing stadiums and are continuing to build really amazing facilities and stadiums that would be cool to do and go experience. And it was Labor Day weekend, right? Like Vegas being flooded by those two fan bases had to be unreal. I know I've seen some crazy clips of two guys bringing their trumpets into one of this casino and next started playing, and everybody's yelling it, which, like you don't experience that, unless you're traveling and there's an added element when both teams are traveling to a neutral site. To me, that brings that excitement factor up and up and up.
yeah, there was, well, actually, they were asking how, like, Sark, how we feel about having the early game at Michigan and how that's going to go. And he was like, we love early games. Like, we start our days all the time early. And, this is what we're made for. And I really wanted someone to be like, well, how about when it's in Austin, Texas, and how hot it is? But I mean, I agree with you that I think part of it is like, yeah, can be an advantage to us. And I understand as a fan base, we would love some other thoughts and maybe like, and also, I mean, to your point of talking about Labor Day weekend, like it is fun to go and have that outing for your first game. And like, not that you can't obviously stay in Austin and hang out for Labor Day weekend. Used to do that all the time. So, but I think it would be I love neutral site games for that reason. And when people travel more and more, that it also hypes it up. But every year we do Texas OU at a neutral site, and that weekend is still very exciting. And even though it's an annual thing, like it gets hyped, the bars go crazy, and Dallas welcomes us. So, I mean, I would love to do another one, and it would be really fun for our first game to be something like that as well. Not that I didn't love starting football season off in DKR,
I
but
know.
I'm here. Yeah.
I was like, our goals of having CDC on this pod are now officially crushed after we were promoting more games away from DKR. We were just kidding, CDC. You still totally need to come on the pod. But also, what I was thinking about, we did mention all the things about the elements before. We did say that on our pod, and that's why. But y'all, come on, let's be real. When the Bills had all of that, even the players were like, yo, we can't even get to the stadium. So at some
Right.
point, it becomes not an advantage for anybody and just complete nonsense for everyone.
Yeah, like when they were having people have to shovel out of the
Yeah.
seats in the stadium. Yeah, like agreed.
Crazy. It really is crazy.
Like the number of EMS people that we saw everywhere,
Oh my
I
gosh.
mean, yeah, it was
Plus you
intense.
add like adult beverages on top of it, it truly becomes like a whole logistical nightmare.
Okay.
Which is funny. I saw this too. So Michigan just now, like their first game was the first game to have alcohol or beer, whatever it was, in the stadium. And I find that interesting, right? Like they're prepping for all of us Texas people to come run. Like, do they want the fans to be even rowdier for this game? Like, what's going on? The timing of it makes me curious.
We were actually discussing when we got alcohol inside of DKR over the weekend too. And I just laughed because like coming in as a college student, we obviously didn't. You all were on the field, so it wasn't even like an option for you anyway. But as a patron of the game, when I wasn't working the recruiting stuff, I never really thought much about like buying a beverage inside of the game. Also, like I was in college, so I didn't have any money, but mostly it was like a bunch of tailgating beforehand and plenty of drinking beforehand. So where you got in the game and it was like that was the moment to like watch the game and like also come back down from all of that versus like continued drinking. So it's kind of not as shocking, I guess, that some of these stadiums are still just now getting it because tailgating culture is so huge, you know?
I had the exact same conversation with somebody of like, it's a whole new ball game when you do tailgating and also can drink inside the stadium versus like, no, your tailgating had to last you through the entire game. But I mean, I didn't know that Michigan didn't have it until now, and that they're adding it in. Timing is funny, but maybe they just also know like Texas fans are here to come, and we want the revenue from it. Though they say that like northern region is way better drinkers than we are even. So all the above, they're just excited for everyone to come to the big house and spend lots of money. Now that we're out of college, Devin.
Yes.
Yes, don't drink if you're not 21. Okay, so should we call the game like what we think around final points? I was thinking about this today because I saw someone else tweeting about it and they called theirs. I'm gonna go, I want to say 35-10, but that seems a little bit generous. So I'm gonna go 35-13 Texas.
Okay. Okay. I was going to go 35-28.
Wow. Oh. Y'all, I'm never good at this. I'm terrible at this. I hate guessing. I like both
She
of
likes
those.
predictable numbers. She likes them to be predictable.
Yeah, I'm sitting here doing math in my head.
Right,
Of
looking
like,
at the stats again, Michelle, you're not gonna be able to figure it out like that.
y'all sound great. This is why I don't do betting. Yeah. Losing by I think I want to say there's going to be a 10-point spread. I think we'll do pretty well, but scoring, I don't know. We're going to win. That's what I know.
All three of us are saying W for the Longhorns. That's all that matters.
That's all.
Well, we're excited. We can't wait follow along with us as we travel to the big house for the first time, and tune into us for game day and our recap of the weekend.
Yay!